Hi, everybody. My name's Keith Burgoyne, and I'm sitting here with Steven Mayoff, who is a Canadian novelist, poet, and lyricist. Born in Montreal, he now makes his home on PEI. His fiction, poetry, essays, and reviews have appeared in literary journals and blogs across Canada, the U.S., and abroad. He is the author of the story collection Fatted Calf Blues, the novels Our Lady of Steerage, and The Island Gospel According to Samson Grief, the poetry chapbook Leonard's Flat, and the poetry collection Swinging Between Water and Stone, which was first published in 2019 and reprinted in a revised edition earlier this year. Thanks for joining me, Steven.
I'm really happy to be here. It's good to see you again.
It's great to see you again. I think the last time we spoke was with the launch of The Island Gospel According to Samson Grief.
That's right, 2023.
Has it been that long already?
It has.
Oh, my God. What? I don't know where time goes. So congratulations on the second edition.
Thank you.
I read the first edition when it first came out. Here, I have it right here.
Right.
And I loved it. And in fact, I loved it so much. I remember we were doing a book club on Main Street on CBC Radio.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I recommended it because I thought a lot of people needed to read it.
Oh, I appreciate it very much.
For those not familiar with the first edition, who may not have read it, and they might be picking it up as possibly even after hearing this.
Sure.
Could you describe the collection and a little bit about its structure? Because it kind of has a unique structure, doesn't it?
Right. Well, the overall, I guess the overall theme is reincarnation, and it's broken up into four parts that are very loosely based on birth, life, death, and rebirth. Mm-hmm. And so I chose poems, sometimes certain poems in terms of the themes, there's a bit of overlap. And so, so I kept it very loose.
Mm-hmm. Just to give everybody maybe just like a taste of what the collection is like. Do you want to maybe read a poem for us? Maybe
Sure.
From the first part, Red Planet, maybe?
Red Planet? Sure, that's fine. Let me just find it here. Oh, I've got a bookmark.
We came prepared today.
You came prepared. No, I'm not going to use it, though. Okay, Red Planet. Sure. Red Planet. The muddy bank's rust-colored curve, a crescent wound that won't heal, a trail of brightly painted buoys, decapitated heads, sun themselves on the salty high tide. Gulls circle and swoop, shrieking insults. Patches of red appear on the blue river's surface, submerged islets. Signs of an interior life. An archipelago of mosquito-bitten scabs encrust the back of a white leg. Every squelch in this rosy muck sucks an iron-rich pigment, seeping into pores. Blue-veined tributaries map pale skin. Dusk's watery pink bleeds across a heavenly underbelly, dissipating into charcoal strata, the carbon of space. Glittering pinholes hint at some kind of afterlife, and one pinhole brighter than the rest, beaming back at us. One red planet reflecting off the other.
I really enjoy that poem. That's excellent. I mean, anybody from Prince Edward Island is going to immediately see exactly what you're saying. These red shores, the decapitated heads of which are buoys.
Yeah.
And I like how we take it from this tiny province, right? And then personalize it with those mosquito scabs on the back of your legs and stuff like that. And then finally, we're looking up and we're seeing Mars. Millions and millions of kilometers away. And so we start at the very small PEI, expand to the very, very large. And I like how, we can do that, you can do that in just such a small space. It's kind of, it's the power of poetry, right?
It is.
So that poem, Red Planet, comes in the first part, which is birth, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is. That's right.
And so I mean, we talked briefly about that structure, but I guess what I wanted to talk a little bit about is what led you to divide the book into sections like that.
Well, it kind of just came around on its own. In fact, I wasn't, a lot of these poems were written when I first got here, and that's one of them. And so when it came time, when it started to look like I was going to have, in fact, this was originally going to be a chapbook. Mm-hmm. And I had a publisher, and it just didn't work out. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go for it and do a whole regular kind of book, a large enough book. And, these things just kind of come into play. I looked at my poems. I was going, boy, a lot of these have a theme of mortality of some kind. And so I was still writing poems. Mm-hmm. And so I guess I had it in my head that this is where I was going with this with this theme, and it made sense for if the overall theme was going to be reincarnation, that you would have to go through the stages, mm-hmm. and it all really fell together, I would say, fairly organically.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned, I think, that some of these poems already existed before you settled upon the structure.
Yes, they were all written here on PEI.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So were you just like looking at looking at the wealth of poems that you've created and being like, you know what, these fall into these categories, or did you have to like actually write some of those categories, some of those sections?
Well, once I sort of had it in my head, because I thought I had enough for a chapbook, yeah. And then when that didn't happen, and I thought, well, let's really go for it, for a full-length book. So then I started to write specifically knowing that this was all going to fall into one book. And I don't know, I think mortality is is a theme I fall easily into anyway, so it wasn't hard. But I just I didn't say, I got to write poems about mortality. Just write some poems, poems, whatever is popping into your head now, just write them. And I think when I had more poems, that's when the theme and the sections, mm-hmm. the themes for the sections were more falling into place. I saw it clearer.
Mm. Mm. Awesome. So, as I mentioned, I remember reading this first edition when it came out, and now we have the second edition, and I'm kind of curious about the creation of a second edition, in that, you have the first one, you finish it, and I kind of want to talk about that for a second. That finishing of the first edition, it seems like there's a skill that writers need, the ability to tell when something is done, or when it's time to simply move on. And I find if I'm writing a poem, I can tinker with it for an eternity, and I get absolutely nothing done but that one poem.
Same here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's true all around for most writers.
How do you know when it's done? Or do you just move on?
You just get sick of it. You get sick of it and you go, but I think also, I don't know, it's really intuitive, for me anyway. It's intuitive. And, you think you're done sometimes, and maybe you bring it to a workshop or you show it to a poet and they go, no. Mm. And whatever they say to you, then you think about it, and, you can revise endlessly, and you have to move on and write new things.
When you finished the first edition and it was out in the public, was there anything about it that you, looking back on it now, like before the second edition came out, was there anything you wanted to change?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think I was pretty happy to see it come out. So you don't want to change things then. You usually want to change things later, mm-hmm. much later. Mm. So no, I was pretty happy with it, and and I liked it. No, I was pretty happy. I thought it was a fairly well thought out and well executed, mm-hmm. as a book.
Was there anything, years later that you thought anything like that years later when you're like, it's been out in the public for I don't know how many years it was?
Not until you see it went. It was published in 2019. It wasn't until last year, the beginning of last year, that when that publisher contacted me and said, "I've got a whole bunch of these here. I'm told that we're gonna have to stop public or it's going out of print."
Oh,
and you can buy back whatever copies we have. They gave me a good price too. It said like $5 a pop. Or we're going to be pulping them.
Oh, wow.
And I went, oh, okay. And so I thought about it for a bit. And so I thought, well, $5 a pop is not bad. I could buy it back from them. But I'm terrible at selling my books. What am I going to do? I don't want. And I thought, you know what? If it's going out of print, and then it's going out of print. So just let things happen as they go. The book's about mortality. So, it might as well go that way. And I wrote him back and I said, no, yeah, you're going to pulp them. Go ahead. And in fact, I wrote a Facebook post about this because part of me was kind of hurt, and part of me was ready to move on. And so I just thought I'd write about this. And then Lee Thompson from Galleon Books in Moncton, who I know, is a good friend, and he wrote to me. He said part of the mandate for Galleon, and Galleon had just started in late 2023, so it was still a new publisher. And he said one of the things we want to do is keep Atlantic Canadian books and Atlantic Canadian writers in print. So I would be happy to reprint this.
That's terrific.
And then I thought, wow, what a gift. And I thought, but what an opportunity for me to look at this, because my aesthetic, I don't know. It's not just aesthetic. There's something else involved. But the way poems look, really, it's how they look for me. And I was writing poems with longer lines, and there's a lot of very short lines in this. And I started to think, I want to revise this. I want to play with, to some degree, the language and maybe do some editing. But I really want to play with how they look on the page and play with line lengths. And I was thinking about how, I'm a fiction writer, and I would say I write, foremost I write prose. Yeah. I love writing poetry, but it's kind of secondary because I don't practice it that much. But there are times when I look at my prose, because I practice both, I like to think that one kind of informs the other.
It does.
Yes. I like to hope that the economy that goes into writing poetry informs my prose, and my prose can be as economical. It's not always as economical as I want it to be. I tend to go on and on. but also that I felt that my poems, for the most part, whether you can see it overtly or not, have a very narrative quality. That the narrative of fiction is in the poetry. So I started to think about how I wanted both ideas, both I wanted the poems to almost be a hybrid. And some of the poems already are. If you look at a poem like Janitor, and you look at a poem like newer poems that I was writing, one of them that's in here is Type 3 Diabetes. I was really playing with prose poems, but with line breaks. So I was looking for the merits of both, a kind of hybrid. And so that's what I wanted to do with all of them. I wanted to, I've never written a foreword before, but there's a foreword in this newer version, and I think at the end I say something like, I want the poems to celebrate their inner prose selves. And that's really what it came down to. I want that, I don't know, there's something about something prosaic that is poetic for me, because I think often I find that I'm a better poet in my fiction than I am in my poetry. And so I wanted to bring it into this. So that's kind of how this came about when Lee said, let's just reprint it. And I said, no, let's revise it. I want to revise it. And I don't think he was too sure. And in fact, when I sent it to him and he was looking at the length of the lines, he was going, I don't know if I'm going to fit all this. I said, Lee, just go as far as you can within the parameters of what you've set up. Yeah. And if you got to move to the next line, it's okay. Do it. And if you look at this book, it has a squarish feel to it. And he said, yeah, it's a bit square. I said, I like that. I really like the look.
Did he adjust the format?
He did. He did.
To accommodate the poetry?
Yeah.
That's
for the most part. There were times when he did move a bit of a line over, but still, he mostly accommodated what I gave him.
That's terrific. Yeah, I mean, you notice it's
you can see it.
You can see them. There's the first and second edition. Look at that. Wow.